It's been almost 1 year since I did my first original character episode and first Multiverse Tales episode on this channel, with Bio-mech Kayla. Since then, there's been a bunch of videos in this series, including some rebooted versions of my old characters, and including some characters and designs from a bunch of you awesome subscribers. But today is finally the start of the two-part crossover event, bringing together a whole bunch of the characters from this series that I've been writing for months. We'll start with a recap to remind people or tell people about some of the plot points that have built up to this point, but whether you've seen every Multiverse Tales video or this is your very first one, I really hope you enjoy the story and artwork coming up. Let's get into it, shall we? Let's go. Hit like if you want, subscribe if you feel like, but either way, enjoy the show. Nearly 1 year ago, Michaela Maciel, better known as Kayla, had her life turned upside down when she met Charlie. Charlie is a fast-talking biomech, a species that attaches to sentient life and can alter parts of their body into mechanical weapons and enhancements. Together, they now travel the multiverse, looking for others of Charlie's kind who are causing trouble in other dimensions. On one of their first missions, they met Tayrun, a cynical beast chronicler in a dangerous, dragon-infested beast world. On their quest together, Kayla and Charlie helped open Tayrun's eyes to how much possibility and magic there is to be seen in his world. Little did they know the being who watched over Tayrun's dimension, an overseer named Euless, wasn't pleased with Kayla helping Tayrun become more optimistic. In fact, Euless was mad enough at Kayla's interference in Tayrun's life that he struck a deal with another overseer named Astra. Astra had become an arch enemy of Euless, and he'd even banned her from ever coming back to his dimension. But now, they had an agreement. If Astra brought Kayla to him alive, Astra would once again be permitted in Euless's dimension. Jump ahead to the start of today's tale, and Kayla has just returned to her home dimension, bringing along a new friend, Shady Mech Armor designer Benny Sharp, who'd helped her and Charlie on their latest adventure. But when they got to Kayla's world, a steaming green dragon was there waiting to strike. And so, here begins Multiverse Tales' Battle for the Beast World. She lied. Of course she lied. How did I not see that? Euless said, staring down from the top of a lush green mountain. Birds chirped, a modern city buzzed in the distance. This world and dimension were clearly alive and thriving, despite what he'd been told so many times. 2 circles of light appeared under his feet, and he floated down the mountain to the base of a worn-out old building. The abandoned lot had a sign out front, partially covered in moss, that read, "The Agency of Supernatural Protection." He wandered around the site, seeing nobody, but finally coming across a solitary gravestone. The date of death on it was 4 years ago, and the text read, "Diamos, friend, hero, angel, gave her life to save all life." Euless stared at it as hot breath of rage filled his nostrils. "I don't know what you did here, Astra, but let's see what the champions of your world have to say about it." Across the multiverse, 2 humans and a biomech were ducked inside a broken-down building. "What are we doing here, kid? We fought our way out of the toughest prison on my world. We can take on a stupid dragon," Benny Sharp said calmly, cycling through weapons in his mech suit. Kayla held up an arm to the window behind her. But this was no normal arm. It was mechanically altered into a periscope by her sentient robotic friend Charlie. "This is just too weird, Benny," Kayla said anxiously. "Something doesn't add up. Charlie scanned that dragon, and it has the energy layout of an overseer. They're supposed to watch over dimensions and protect people, but I don't know. Every one of them Charlie and I have come across has been really bad news." "She's right. They usually don't like us, but to be fair, we usually only come across them after we've gone into their universe without their permission to go looking for other biomechs. But in a way, we're doing them a favor, so really they should be thanking us, I'd say. By the way, I'm not seeing that dragon anywhere out there now." The creature may have been out of sight, but there was still steam filling the air all around them, and they could hear the distant flapping of wings. "Charlie, charge up another dimension hop, please. Let's go to Tayrun's dimension to hide out for a bit." Despite the confusion of the situation, a brief flash of excitement burst through Kayla's mind at the thought of finally going back to see Tayrun. Tayrun knows everything there is to know about dragons. Maybe he'll have some kind of idea what this thing is. A tail suddenly slammed through the floor above them, and the group scattered. A shrieking beast thrust its head in as they bolted from the building. Charlie shifted across Kayla's body, changing her legs into a set of mechanical rollerblades. "Benny, run! The dimension hop needs time to charge!" "Run? Run? Who do you think you're talking to, kid? I'm a fighter if you ever seen one. I ain't afraid of no dragon. Let's party, you big green gecko. He shot into the air and his hands lit up with 2 plasma blades springing from his forearms. He shot towards the beast. It seemed like the creature grinned as it fired a burst of deafening sound waves at Benny. It barely shook his flight. Oh, I'm sorry, did you say something, Jolly Green? I couldn't hear you over the sound of my freaking awesome mech armor. He thrust his blades towards the creature, but she ducked under it and swooped through the air behind him. Benny twirled around. Oh, you're fast, huh? But are you faster than these babies? He aimed his wrists and 2 massive rockets sprung out of his forearms and shot straight at the beast. The creature gracefully twirled between them and swung its tail, smacking Benny backwards. As he flew through the air, he yelled, "Whoa, didn't see that coming, but I bet you didn't see this coming either, you weird sky frog." The rockets that passed the dragon spun back around and shot towards it. The creature once again grinned and suddenly shrunk into itself, disappearing in a cloud of steam. The rockets flew into the cloud and exploded, but down through the smoke shot a figure. A human who landed right on the street, laughing and looking back at Benny. "Dang, you're fun, but I'm not really here for you. I do really want one of those mech suits, though." Benny landed and his head immediately jumped out of fight mode, totally unfazed by what he'd just seen. "Ah, geez, I shot at a potential customer. Bad move, Benny. But hey, if you hit me again, you're paying double for the armor, dragon lady." The woman marched right towards Kayla and Charlie. Kayla was still ready to bolt, but held her ground for a moment, intrigued by the figure approaching her, despite having just been attacked by her. The woman was tall and looked to be in her late 20s. She had floofy hair and crazy golden eyes, along with the same glowing runes on her forearm that Kayla had seen on other overseers. "Nice to finally meet you, Kayla, but I'm only sort of here for you," she said, reaching Kayla and tapping right on her forehead. "But really, I'm here for this beautiful creature." She knelt down and looked right into Charlie's big blue lens. "Who, me? Oh, I mean, that's flattering, lady, but I'm not really sure who you are, and I don't know if I want to go anywhere with you, seeing as how you just attacked us, and you're an overseer and they tend to not like us so much." The excitable energy flashed out of Astra's golden eyes for a brief moment. "Don't lump me in with other overseers. I'm definitely not a fan of them either." She took a breath, and the wild look returned again. "And sorry about the attack, I kinda just wanted to see what you all could do. My name's Astra, and in fact I'm here for your help to take down another overseer. One who's actually a bit of a thorn in the butt to a friend of yours. The one you just said you were gonna go see? That Tayrun kid?" Kayla's heart skipped a beat. What do you mean? Why would an overseer have a problem with Tayrun?" "It's not so much that he has a problem with him, more like he's trying to ruin the kid's life, to turn him into a sociopath who kills all human life on his planet." Kayla had no idea how to respond to that, but her face got hot and her teeth clenched. Astra smirked. Not really a fan of that idea, huh? Well, how about you, and more importantly, your beautiful biomech buddy here, help me take his powers, take his world, and leave him dead in a ditch somewhere?" Kayla's thoughts swirled, but before she could answer, Benny yelled over, "Hey, that sounds like fun. I can come too, right?" "Of course!" Astra yelled before glancing back at Kayla. "Who is he again? I like him." Kayla, Charlie, and Benny looked around them at the bizarre, pink-skied landscape. Astra had teleported them to a hidden area on some place called the Everyverse to have a private conversation. Astra twirled around and flopped back into a weird, puffy bush that looked almost like a beanbag chair. Kayla's mind was racing about Tayrun, but she also couldn't help being weirdly energized by this seemingly carefree woman before her. "Okay," Kayla said, trying to be as relaxed as Astra, but failing miserably. "What's going on with Tayrun, and how can we help?" Astra's golden, manic eyes stared straight into Kayla's, and that made her pay that much closer attention. "Your friend lives in Dimension T905, which has been watched over for the last 100 years or so by an overseer with a forest worth of sticks up his butt named Euless. He really hates people and has been slowly trying to wipe out all the ones on his world so he can focus on his monsters and dragons and all that kind of stuff. I don't know if you noticed when you were there, but that world has an insane amount of human-chomping beasties." Kayla nodded, thinking back to the shambling slime drake that had almost killed her on her last visit. "I definitely noticed, but how did this Euless guy become an overseer if he hates people so much? Isn't he supposed to protect people?" Astra shook her head. "Overseers are just glorified toddlers, using their worlds and people as toys for their entertainment. Any human out there can become one if they're given that dimension's overseer energy by the current overseer of that universe, and a lot of the time they make really bad choices about who to pass their power on to." Okay, well that obviously really sucks, but how could Euless turn Tayrun bad enough to go crazy and kill people? He's not the most optimistic guy in the world, but he's a good person. Euless can't just, I don't know, force his mind into it or something, can he? Astra leapt up and started pacing around Kayla, Benny, and Charlie with a spring in her step. Nope, that's definitely true. Overseers are a lot more powerful in their own dimensions, but they can't directly force people to do things. What they can do is change the weather, cause natural disasters, create diseases, make monsters, control those monsters. A master manipulator can do some pretty terrible things to a person with all that. Euless has been pushing Tayrun's life to be worse and worse since he was a kid, and Euless really hates you specifically because on your little trip to his dimension, you made that kid a lot more chipper. In fact, Euless actually tried to get me to come here to kidnap you so he could kill you as revenge, and maybe show your body to the kid to make his life even worse again. But obviously, I have better plans than that. Kayla ignored that second part because something had clicked in her mind. Her whole body started to boil as she thought back to the story of how Tayrun's family had died. Wait, Tayrun's mom was killed by a disease, and his sister died climbing a mountain in a storm looking for a cure. Was that Euless? Oh, absolutely. Euless used to brag about that whole event all the time. It was his first big play at trying to turn that Tayrun kid into a twisted people killer. Kayla started to shake, and Charlie finally spoke up. Whoa, Kayla, your blood pressure is spiking like crazy. I think you need to calm down a bit. Do you want me to load up some calming music that I have saved? No! Kayla took a shallow breath. Sorry, Charlie, I'm fine. She refocused on Astra. So what do we have to do to stop Euless? I'm in. Whatever it is, I'm in. Astra grinned eagerly. What we do is we take Euless's overseer energy, give it to me, and I'll make sure your friend Tayrun lives a peaceful little life out beast chronicling or whatever it is he does for fun. And all it'll take is you playing hostage, your Bio-mech friend here sedating him, and this. Astra tapped on what looked like a quarter of a golden orb clipped to her belt. There was a pause. Benny, who'd been shockingly quiet this whole time, finally chimed in. Oh yeah, of course, you got one of those things. Perfect, we're all safe now. Astra looked at him in shock. You know what this is? Of course I don't. I don't know most of the stuff you're talking about. This all sounds like when my nephew tried to explain that Revenge Team Infinity Gumbo movie to me. It's all nonsense. But I do want to help, because it all sounds like my brand of nuts. So you gonna finish explaining this insanity or what? Because I still got no idea what our plan is here. Holding up a yellow rock doesn't mean nothing to me. Astra laughed. Alright, fair enough. Here's how this is all gonna go. Over the next half hour, Astra explained everything they needed to know, and Kayla learned so much that she'd have a million more questions about after the task at hand was completed. That golden object that Astra had was one of 4 pieces of a multiversal orb that she'd misplaced the other pieces to. It could do a lot of crazy things, but most importantly for now was it was the one thing in the multiverse that could let someone take an Overseer's ability without them giving it up willingly. The process could take Astra upwards of a day to accomplish, but she could do it as long as Euless was incapacitated, which is where an unexpected skill of Charlie's was needed. You don't even know what kind of powers you've got, you adorable little machine. There's a reason I really love your species. Astra eagerly held out her arm to Charlie. Jump onto me, I'll show you. Charlie cautiously detached from Kayla and leapt onto Astra. The second he made contact, the runes on her arm vanished. Her eyes rolled back into her head, and she collapsed to the ground. Oh my gosh, did I kill her? What happened? I can't feel anything from her. What the heck is going on, and why did you want me to do that? Charlie stammered as he pulled away from her body, and as soon as he was off her, she sat up, eyes wide again. Ooh, what a rush! I don't really understand what just happened. That's never happened to Kayla before, or anyone else I've ever attached to. Astra shook her head as she leapt up. It only happens to Overseers. Your kind, Bio-mechs, scramble Overseer energies so much that we can't function with one of you touching us. So now, we just have to get to Euless, distract him long enough to get Charlie onto him, and by tomorrow, I'll be the Overseer of Tayrun's dimension, and all will be happy in your little friend's world. Astra whipped around to look at Benny, and I hadn't anticipated having someone like you along, but I may actually have a role for you in all this. How do you feel about being a delivery boy? Hey, that's actually funny you ask, because I used to be a delivery boy for my grandpa Ricky when I was a kid. I delivered baby powder to his poker buddies, till one day I got a sniff of it and my brain went all crazy for an hour, and it turned out it wasn't baby powder I was delivering. Then my mom made me stop working for him, but it was still a really great summer though. Anyway, yeah, I'll deliver whatever you want. Now let's go save this Tayrun kid, shall we? Kayla chewed angrily on the gag in her mouth as Astra finished tying a loose rope around her hands. Kayla felt naked without Charlie, but her anger at Euless kept her distracted from her friend's absence. Astra shoved something into her hands behind her back. "Just in case we end up with a little scrap with Euless, press the button on this thing and don't point it at yourself when you do." Kayla had questions but took everything in stride, focusing on Tayrun and her hatred for Euless. She still despised that he'd been entrusted with watching over a whole dimension when he was clearly such a vile person. Astra tapped some runes in the air above her golden orb shard, and 2 portals opened in front of her. "Alright, nothing fancy here, everyone. As long as we've got Charlie, the orb shard, and me, everything should be just fine." Astra pushed Kayla through one of the 2 portals and then stepped in behind her. They appeared in the same clearing that Kayla had arrived in on her last trip to Tayrun's dimension, but this time, standing before them was an upright, stern figure with a scimitar blade at his side, with his arms held behind his back. Astra gave a fake smile. "Special delivery for you, Euless, all wrapped up for whatever it is you got planned for her." Hearing his name made Kayla fume. Euless looked at her, then back at Astra. "I'm surprised. I was anticipating some kind of elaborate double-cross knowing you, Astra." "Oh, come on, you've got no faith in me at all, do you?" she said, beaming, eagerly anticipating the unfolding plan. "Well, I suppose that makes me the devious one today." He pulled his hands from behind his back to reveal he was holding 2 combined pieces of the multiversal orb. "But with all I know now, I'd say it's more than justified." Astra's face went white. She backed away from Kayla with horror in her eyes. How did you get that? Kayla, just run!" A cloud of steam erupted around Kayla as Astra transformed behind her into a dragon and shot into the air. But out of the nearby trees sprung a black, scaly beast. It chomped its fangs into Astra's wing and slammed her to the ground. Kayla barely dove out of the way in time, unraveling her arms and throwing her gag aside. She was confused, but her instincts took over. She looked at the object in her hand that Astra had given her. She pressed the button, pointing it away from herself. Out from the silver handle sprung a glowing purple hammer. She looked from it to Euless, then sprinted forward. Euless sighed. "So it was a double cross after all. Heath, give me a hand here." Out of nowhere, a blue-clad mountain of a man flew across the clearing and tackled right into Kayla's side. They both rolled across the ground, but he leapt up far faster. "Stay down! We're not here for you!" He looked up angrily at Astra as she battled the snake-like dragon. "We're just here for her." Kayla hurt all over as she picked herself up. The looming figure stood between her and Euless, and she wasn't having it. She yelled out and swung her weapon at Heath. A swirl of wind rushed up around them as he thrust an arm up and caught the weapon with ease. She tried to yank it back, but he held it tight. Behind her, Astra had finally pulled away from the dragon and fired a cannon of sound from her mouth. The creature didn't even flinch. "I remember all your tricks, Astra," Euless yelled. "The pitch slime serpent is immune to them all." She ignored him and began to spew a wave of steam all around in an attempt to blind her foe. But through the smog could very clearly be seen a pair of the creature's glowing eyes. It easily found her in the mist and spat a glob of green goop at her tail. She flapped her wings trying to get away, but only succeeded in clearing the smoke. Her tail was glued to the earth. Kayla, still trying to yank her weapon away, finally got an idea. She pressed the button on the hammer to recoil it back in. Then, she stepped closer to Heath, pointed it right in his face, and pressed it again. It sprung right into his nose and knocked him backwards. She ran towards Euless again and yelled, "Benny, come on, where are you?" He suddenly sprung up from the trees, carrying Charlie. "I thought there was gonna be some kind of signal or something. Also, I was watching the dragon fight. You seeing this? It's pretty crazy." He shot towards Euless, reeled back his arm to hurl Charlie, but before he could throw, a huge cluster of rocks flew through the air and smacked him off course. He dropped Charlie and hurtled to the ground. The rocks hit the earth and all rolled back towards a stocky girl with even more rage in her eyes than Kayla. The rocks stuck to her arm, giving her a massive, stony fist. Kayla saw Charlie on the ground and changed course to get to him, but before she could, another figure shot down in front of her from the sky in a swirl of flames bursting from his hands. His eyes were softer than the others, but still had an unease about them. "Please, stop. Whatever this is, we're just trying to get her, not you," he said, gesturing to Astra. Kayla wanted to swing again, but instead yelled out, Why? Who are you people, and what did Astra ever do to you? Astra finally switched back to her human form to free her tail, and was about to try fleeing on foot when she finally noticed the stony-fisted girl, then the boy, in front of Kayla. She immediately looked away, trying to avoid eye contact. How did you get to them, Euless? My dimension was locked. There was no way in. Euless marched towards her with his dragon looming overhead, ready to strike whenever ordered. You locked it from the outside, but you left a key on the inside. He tapped on one of the pieces of the orb in his hand. All it took was your champion Sterling here to figure out how to use it, and the proverbial gates were open. She glanced towards Sterling but immediately looked away again. Kayla could hardly recognize Astra without the gleeful, wild look in her eyes, but she still didn't understand what was going on. What did she do to you? To all of you? It was slowly clicking into Kayla that, despite claiming to hate Overseers, Astra was one too, and she must have had a dimension herself, at least at some point. Euless walked into the middle of the group. It's likely better if we show you what she's done. The runes on Euless' arms sparked up, and he snapped his fingers. A ring of light opened above them, and the whole group, save for his dragon, vanished into another world. Kayla's heart sank as she looked out with the odd band around her at a massively destroyed city. They stood on a near crumbling building, and in the distance could be heard shrieking monsters. Charlie had crawled back up onto Kayla and was just as speechless as her. Even Benny remained silent. Astra simply stood, wounded from her battle, and continued to keep her gaze away from Sterling and Alexis. Euless walked over to Heath and put a hand on his shoulder, looking at Kayla and Astra. This is Dimension K998, Heath's home. 3 years ago, a piece of the multiversal orb appeared here and started wreaking havoc. Astra's gaze shot up to Euless. What? No, the piece I chucked here was broken. It couldn't have done all this. Heath stomped towards her. That thing has been shooting off energy and light since it got here, and ever since, hundreds of massive monsters have been popping up and destroying everything. If you put it here, then millions of lives are on your hands. Kayla wanted Astra to deny what he said. She desperately still wanted to believe in her, but Astra just looked away in shame. Euless saw the conflict stirring in Kayla and reveled in it. He raised his arm and snapped again. They next appeared around the side of the Agency of Supernatural Protection in another dimension, standing next to a solitary gravestone. This is Dimension A016, the world Astra was supposed to oversee. It took a bit of piecing together with Sterling and Alexis's knowledge to figure out what you've done here, so feel free to correct us if we get something wrong, he said, sarcastically leering at Astra. You'd told me 4 years ago that this dimension was destroyed and you had to lock it up so nobody could get in and hurt themselves, but you were always a bit vague about how it had been destroyed. When Sterling and Alexis used the orb shard you'd left here to leave and try to help Heath in his world, I was finally able to get in and see that it was still alive as ever. Well, most of it, he said, tapping the gravestone, making Sterling visibly uncomfortable. Kayla looked from the grave up to Sterling. He seemed ready to say something, but the stocky girl, Alexis, furiously jumped in first. 10 years ago, demons started attacking our world, sent by a maniac named Lucifer, who used one of those yellow rock things to make the demons. They killed hundreds of thousands of people, and after 6 years, the only way we were able to stop him was because our best friend, Lucifer's own daughter, stole the rock from him and sacrificed herself to kill him and all the other demons. But clearly, she shouldn't have had to do that. If you were really our overseer, then how did Lucifer get that thing? How did you let him get it? Kayla needed to know this too. Once again, she prayed for Astra to give a reasonable answer, like this Lucifer guy had gotten it by accident, or he'd stolen it, or anything. But Astra just muttered, I gave it to him. Even Sterling's eyes flashed with glints of anger now. Alexis looked about ready to punch Astra's head off, but instead slammed her stony fist through the wall of the agency. Euless spoke up again. So, what, Astra? After they killed off those little demons, this place got too boring for you? Did you just lock it up and move on after that, leaving it with no protector whatsoever? Astra shook her head but said nothing. She was panting and still refusing to look Sterling and Alexis in the eyes. Kayla was now completely embarrassed and furious that she'd aligned herself with Astra. How had she trusted her so easily without hearing the other side of the story? Euless snapped again and they all appeared, once more in the clearing on Tayrun's world, with the black serpent looming overhead once again. Euless turned to Kayla, but didn't come too close, unsettled by Charlie's presence. So you see, Kayla, Astra is not someone to be trusted. Whatever she had planned for you to do, kill me, lock me away, take my powers, it's pointless. I may have done things you disapprove of to my world, but it's nothing compared to what her irresponsible nature would lead to. Kayla had no idea how to respond or what to do. She was just locked in place with anger and disappointment spiraling in her mind. It was like a cloud of rage was swirling around this whole group. The only person not sinking in anger stepped forward. Well, that was certainly an interesting little trip. Astra, you're a lot more of a wacko than I was expecting. Euless, still not a fan of you. I know plenty of folks like you back home, and I'm pretty sure you're still no good. But the thing here that you all gotta realize is, mid-sentence, he shot towards Kayla and Charlie and snatched them up, flying off into the woods. Benny, what are you doing? Look, kid, I got no idea what Astra's gotten us into, but I don't trust none of them. We gotta figure something else out here. Suddenly a hiss rang from above them, and a glob of green slime fired down and slammed into Benny. He tumbled out of the air, and Charlie just managed to shoot a wire into a nearby tree to catch Kayla. But Benny slammed to the ground and was stuck in place from the slime, with the serpent descending. Kayla and Charlie dropped to the ground and ran towards him. Charlie's charging up a dimension hop, but it's gonna take time. We have to— Get out of here, kid. I can handle myself. Just come back with a plan to free me and to take out that big green spitting goon, huh? Kayla wanted to protest, but before she could, Charlie yelled, "Kayla, look out for the rocks!" He shifted her arm into a shield and just barely blocked a careening bundle of boulders that slammed against Kayla, knocking her into a tree. Alexis charged over with fury in her eyes, an anger that now looked all too familiar to Kayla. The rocks pulled up onto Alexis again. How can you still be siding with her? Astra is a monster! Kayla winced through the pain as Charlie shifted down her leg to become rollerblades once more. I didn't know that she did all that, but it doesn't change what Euless has done to Tayrun. The dragon suddenly swung its maw down at Kayla. She ducked under it and shot off into the woods. She didn't know if Alexis or the dragon were chasing her, but she just ran and ran and ran. I swear, Benny, we will come back with a plan. It was a promise Kayla knew she'd have a very hard time keeping, but hopefully it would be easier with Tayrun's help. Well, there's that. And don't worry, Tayrun, the Beast Chronicler himself, the narrator of all my Dragon episodes that people have been asking me to draw for like a year now, will be the very first drawing of the next episode on Monday. The story concludes in that episode, and there's a whole bunch of good stuff lined up. So I hope you all get excited for that, but besides that, that's all for today. I'm Christian Pearson, this has been PopCross Studios, home of the nerdiest art videos on YouTube. Thank you so much for watching, everybody, and I will see you all in the next episode on Monday. Goodbye.